Hey guys, welcome to JR's Junk Drawer. I'm JR, this is Dukina, and this is Boots. Want to speak up, Boots? She's tired. Now normally I would start up the episode with a painting I had done sometime more recently, but because I'm 6 months behind my original plans of launching this channel, I figure kick it off with what I was originally planning on launching the channel with. So today we'll be taking a look back on Silica, a mermaid I painted some time ago, and reviewing the painting process. Let's jump in. So when starting out staring at the blank canvas, the first important step that I have to wrestle with is what I like to call the concept design stage, where I'll establish things like body language, emotion, and concept balance. Sometimes I'll already have a mental picture of what I want to paint, but more commonly, I'll just free sketch with gesture drawing or rough line work until something sticks. But for this project, nothing was coming to me. I knew I needed to paint a mermaid, but after an hour or so staring at a blank canvas, I decided it was time to take a look at some example art and hopefully get the ball rolling. Thankfully, I pretty quickly found a really excellent piece by Ross Straws that had me instantly coming up with ideas. He's got a YouTube art channel, and I'll leave a link to him in the description down below. Now with a clear picture of what I was going for, I began to make changes to the design concept that targeted what I wanted to learn, like her fin, hair, and midriff. So I brought those details out to be the focal points of the image. Once I started shading, I began running into my first obstacles. This having been my first time painting and texturing an exposed stomach area, it went about as well as you might expect.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
2 hours later.
No!
So after a couple of hours of agonizing art rage, I managed to finally texture a version of it I was somewhat happy with. But it did take several repaints. But that's sometimes what it takes to get it right. When you run into a roadblock, I feel like you shouldn't be afraid to go back in with an eraser or even a new layer and give it another try. Within reason, you don't want to end up like
2,000 years I waited, but you did it to me again!
So now that I had gotten the shading to a decent level, I figured it was time to start work on some of the elements. I had planned from the beginning, starting with her gills. I knew that I wanted them to be visible, so I decided that her side would be as good a place as any. Moving back up to her face, I began to rework the expression to what I felt would feel more optimistic. And without stopping, I moved straight into settling on a design for the scales that I would then scatter across her body. Now when texturing and shading the hair, I found that to make it easier to learn, it helped a lot to break it down into established sections. With each anime-sized clump of hair, I started to wash, rinse, and repeat method of practicing the shading, and eventually I memorized a basic understanding of the technique. In future paintings, I definitely begin to expand on the technique and treat the entire hair as a single entity, but for now, this technique served me pretty decently to simplify the issue. Now, while I could have set up the color and lighting earlier, with the use of blending modes, it opens up the ability to tweak and adjust the image at a later stage than would normally be accessible using traditional mediums. After continuing to add more details to the image, I realized that her skin tone was turning out a little too warm. Because this is an underwater scene, I decided to go for some cool tones instead. And with all of that done, other than a couple of last-minute tweaks, I decided that the image was ready to be called finished. You know, I really enjoyed painting this. It might have been several months ago and everything when I first painted it, but I still look back at it as one of my milestone paintings. I made a lot of progress with this, and I mean that in the sense that I learned a lot from having painted it. I learned how to paint stomachs, made a lot of progress. My paintings after this turned out a lot better for the extra effort that I put into this one. The hair helped me learn and concrete in my head exactly the methodology that I wanted to approach painting hair with. And I also really enjoyed how the tail turned out. I was kind of worried at the beginning of painting this if the tail was even going to turn out at all. But I think it did. It balances well with the rest of the image. It doesn't draw your eye to it too much because the light level is still decently balanced everywhere. When you look at it individually, it still holds its own. Funny enough, the shimmering effect that I have across her body, I actually started that down on her tail. It was a default Procreate brush that I used initially, but as I moved up past her knees, I don't know, does it really count as a knee if it's part of a mermaid tail? I don't know if that would qualify, but oh well. Once I got past there though, I swapped over to just using a round brush with a blending mode. I cannot remember what blending mode I used though. It was either color dodge, add, or screen, I want to say, because those are my three go-tos when I paint kind of like lighting effects. But one of the rules of thumb that I like to use is paint effects onto a separate layer and then just cycle through the blending modes. See what looks best. Because oftentimes you'll end up stumbling across something that, hey, maybe it worked better than what you were originally expecting. The scales also turned out pretty well. And I think I just made a brush stroke. When I started the scales on her face, if you remember, I actually started with small little angular scales. I'll throw up an example. Those weren't really working out well. They might work better with a more villainous or dominant character, but they just weren't working for her overall more friendly and cheerful design. So I redesigned them with a more large and round design, hopefully that would work better. And you know, they ended up turning out pretty well. Basically, I went in, did a bunch of little circular lassos, came in with a soft gradient brush and just painted over the whole area. That way it would develop a nice soft gradient that would spread across the scales. And it worked out pretty nicely. Came back in on some of them, as you can see, and added in some dark lines. I think I added some light lines. Yeah, a couple of little light lines on a few of them. Not too many. I wasn't trying to draw your eye to them. I wanted them to blend into the character rather than stand out. The background. There we go. Looking up the water surface, it turned out pretty nice too. For most of the light leak, I used a just round brush. Up here, I probably used the, one of the light pens or light brushes. They work out really well for adding in nice, real bright hot spots. And that about sums up my thoughts. I want to again credit the reference material that helped lay the foundation for this piece. I've been a viewer and supporter of Ross's channel, and I've really enjoyed a lot of his content. So if you haven't had your fill of mermaid speed paints yet, please take a look over at his take on Ariel. It's a really good video, and I'll leave a link in the description down below. Now that all said, I'm interested to hear your feedback, so please leave a comment down below, and if you have an artist that you look up to or inspired you, let us know. If you've enjoyed my content enough to stick around this long, I've got a sneak peek at what I have planned rolling out over the next few weeks. You okay back there, girl? You just exploring. Well, she's gone for the day, I guess. Let's see if we can bring her back. In the meantime, enjoy the sneak peek. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel having just started. If you know someone who enjoys artwork, please share the video. I'll hopefully be getting more content up on the channel 2 to 3 times a month. And if you're interested in the building of the set, please take a look over at my first video for a speed assembly of the build. I hope to see you guys on the next episode.